Um, we're here to have Linda defend her research. The process we'll use today is Linda will have up to 40 minutes to present, and then we'll have a discussion, question answers after that. So Dr. Booker and I will go silent on you, Linda.
Okay.
We won't ask any questions during your time. This is your time. It's
Okay.
your research. And then at the end of the question answer period, if Dr. Booker and I need to take our discussion offline, we'll just state that. And then I will get back with you as soon as we come to a decision. How's that?
That sounds great.
Okay. Dr. Janet, you okay with all that?
Sounds perfect. I know, Linda, you're going to do terrific.
Thank you.
All right, Linda, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Dr. Branson, and thank you, Dr. Booker, for your time today in coming to hear my oral defense on my research topic, which is real estate investors, how intuition is used in making real estate investment decisions. So thank you so much for joining me today. The agenda will go as follows. I'll go over background and problem briefly, talk about the purpose of the study, the conceptual framework that was utilized, the research questions that were designed, a little bit around the literature findings, Boolean overview, and then I'll go into the research methods and analysis that I utilized. And then finally, we'll talk about results, the themes or findings, limitations that were encountered, implications, and then future research recommendations will be shared. So regarding the background in decision-making, real estate, as well as successful business owners, utilize decision-making in order to be effective in the world that they do of making quick and sometimes intuitive decisions. Research shows that leaders and entrepreneurs primarily use two types of methods in making their decisions. The first is rational decision-making, which creates decisions based on logic and does not consider emotional consequences of the decision. And then the second is intuitive decision, which is based on the unconscious ingenuity of leaders. Now, there are situations where poor investment decisions have been made, and research shows that behavioral biases and risk-taking can often influence decisions that leaders make. Leaders in business are known to analyze information using alternative measures and emotional filters. And oftentimes those emotional filters are gut feelings or intuition, and they use that to address those situations. And in some cases, it helps in problem solving the situation. And also it could impact the decision that they make. Now, there are two reasons that leaders make poor decisions. Number one is insufficient motivation, or there's intuition and emotional thoughts that get involved. And then secondly, it's around the cognitive bias. They're deliberately thinking and sometimes overthinking the decision, therefore impacting whether the decision is successful or not. The general problem for this study is that investment decision-making practices with heavy reliance on the return on investment calculations that real estate investors use hasn't really changed since 1996. Return on investment, or ROI, is defined as the amount earned over the actual investment. Now, real estate investors seek a variety of different methods to make improved investment decisions, and that's done to lower their risk of making a poor decision that could threaten their business success overall. As of 2020, real estate investors have not adopted a consistent standard approach for making investment decisions beyond what they currently use, but there is expected return on investment, or ROI. Prior research on investment decisions has mainly been focused on stock market investment decisions. This particular research addresses another aspect of investment decisions, specifically real estate investment decisions and how real estate investors make good investment decisions. The specific problem is that real estate investors lack the awareness of how and when they use intuition in their decision-making process. Now, for this particular study, research as of 2017 from the Small Business Administration Report indicated that there were 30.7 million small business owners in the United States, which included 2.9 million real estate businesses. And to define a small business, it's no more than 250 employees. In that same report, there were 2,333 plus small businesses in North Carolina, of which 12,356 were real estate businesses. That also included real estate leasing and renting. So for this study, 8 real estate investors from the state of North Carolina were used, and all of those individuals volunteered to participate in the study. The purpose of this qualitative exploratory case study was to better understand the decision-making process of the owners of real estate investment companies and the use of intuition in making real estate investment decisions that were deemed either successful or not successful. A conceptual framework is an important component of a research study. And the conceptual framework serves as an outline and sets the structure for the study. The theoretical framework is a structure that supports and describes the theory of a study, which reinforces the research problem. The overall goal of this study is to achieve an understanding of real estate investors and how they use intuition in making real estate investment decisions. Now, there are existing theories that help to explain how real estate investors might use intuition in their investment decisions. Now, there is no hypothesis specific to how real estate investors may incorporate intuition in their decision-making, but there were other decision-making theories that helped to support this study. It was Kant's theory of intuition and behavior theory, which will also focus on the psychological variables. In addition, the behavioral theory is aligned with actual decision-making behavior, where that theory consists of individuals making decisions with little knowledge. The existing theories on beliefs, sensing, intuition, and general decision theory help to support the framework for the conceptual framework for this study. 3 research questions were derived as a part of this study. The first is, how do owners of real estate investment companies define intuition as it relates to making investment decisions? The second, how do owners of real estate investment companies describe their decision-making process, in particular, the role of intuition? And finally, the third research question, when reflecting on investment decisions that were deemed a success versus not a success, how do the owners of real estate investment companies describe differences in their decision-making process and the role of intuition? The 61% of leaders worldwide responded that they relied on intuition to make sound business decisions, and that's according to a study by Malusky in 2015. Business owners have a unique cognition that provides them the ability to identify, evaluate, and attain potential business opportunities. So they are always making decisions very quickly. Leaders and entrepreneurs use 2 methods: rational decision-making and intuitive decision-making. Rational decision-making has been studied by research since the early 1950s. And the rational decision-making process is a step-by-step process in which leaders use to obtain acceptance of their decision. The rational decision-making process begins with the decision-making maker having a clear understanding of the facts and details to analyze the problem. Leaders often rely on using rational decision-making because it provides a formal mechanism to their decision-making process. Now, as it relates to intuitive decision-making, that is based upon the decision maker relying upon their gut feeling or their instinct. In a study with McKinsey in 2014, it was conducted that a study conducted on decision-making and intuition using the critical incident technique. Now, this particular study had findings that indicated additional research was needed to understand what types of effective judgments and ineffective judgments are made by principals of small real estate investment companies when forecasting returns. And so this particular study helped to support my study regarding utilizing critical incident technique as it relates to intuition. Researchers and philosophers from the early 1900s have studied intuition and the impact it has on the human mind. Now, intuition is described in a variety of different ways, such as gut feeling, judgment, and insight. The term intuition was derived from the Latin verb intuere, and it's commonly defined as an instinctive ability of an individual to have the awareness of knowing something, or the way of knowing, without having any valid proof to justify the knowing. Now, the connection between intuition and rational decision-making presented a gap. So building upon the insights from McKinsey's study was helpful in needing to understand the role of intuition. In addition, there has not been any studies utilizing the critical incident technique as it relates to real estate investment decisions and intuition. For this particular study, an exploratory case study was warranted. And this study met the criteria for a case study research design based upon the specific criteria. And the criteria is as follows. Number one, form of research question. Number two, the degree of control the researcher will have over the actual behavior actions. And number three, scale of focus on latest behavioral actions. This research study addresses how and what questions, and the researcher was not searching to take control of the behavior or the participants of the event. The purpose of using a critical incident technique was to collect specific crucial details concerning behavior in specific situations. The critical incident technique enabled the researcher to place emphasis on the specific phenomena, and it's asking participants to recall a specific incident in decision-making. After the interviews were conducted and the transcription process was completed, the analysis process began utilizing the 5-step analysis by Yin. The 5-step analysis process consists of compiling, disassembling, reassembling, interpreting, and concluding the data. The first step of compiling the data was uploading the interviews into a software system called NVivo, and then transcribing the data. It also involved listening to each interview and taking detailed notes during the analysis process. During the analysis process, which rolls into disassembling, required initial coding, creating categories, and identifying themes. The next step would involve reassembling the data, initial coding, and then utilizing a manual process, reviewing the data, and then having to go back and repeat listening to the interviews, listening to the recordings, and sorting them into data buckets. So that's in the reassembling. The next step, which is step 4, is interpreting the data. And in addition, there were 27 codes that were created from the participant interview responses. So in the interpretation of the data from the interviews required recognizing patterns. It also required the manual process of creating a Microsoft Word table to record the codes, enter the research questions and the participant interview responses so that patterns could be revealed. The data was recorded until saturation was reached. And as a result of that, there were 3 groups that formed, which result into the 3 common themes that you see here. So the results of the study analysis uncovered a variety of definitions for theme 1, which is the meaning of intuition from the perspective of a real estate investor. So the variety of definitions revealed there were 4 recurring definition terms that the participants shared. Those terms were gut feeling, trust your gut, past experiences, and emotions. And the emotions encompassed spiritual feelings and women's intuition. The findings revealed the commonly used terms for the understanding of intuition as related to literature found in chapter 2 that was researched. All participants verbalized their understanding of intuition, and they share their definition of intuition as it related to real estate investing decision-making. Theme 2 was around the use of past experiences may have an impact on investment decisions. Now, past experiences did relate to research that was found regarding how good leaders use emotion and reasoning to make decisions that often have an impact on the customer and the decisions that they make. The participants shared how fairness and the ability to help a customer or seller in the transaction played a critical role in how they made their decision. Now, keep in mind, most real estate investors typically use data metrics as their primary mechanism for decision-making, but it is important to note that according to these participants, having the knowledge and trusting their gut instinct had value in their decision-making process, meaning they didn't always focus on the return on investment. They made sure that they were looking at their past experiences to help make a good decision. The third theme, value and risk, consisted of 4 elements: valuing time, customer value, balancing risk, and improving financial gain. So if we look at the first element, valuing time, this particular element revealed the importance of identifying the length of time that it takes for an investment decision to be made, and to be made with profit or not. The participants indicated that there were times where the value of time may have outweighed the value of the return on investment. So that is a key component when determining if a profit can be made in investing. The element of time also related to literature that was found in regard to how leaders have to make quick and prompt decisions. So valuing the time is critical in a decision-making process, and participants indicated that it's not always about the financial gain. The second element is customer value. Now, real estate investors consider the value of their customer or client as part of their decision-making process. The interpretation of the findings of customer value reveal that customer satisfaction is just as important to a real estate investor in their decision-making process. Profits or returns on investments are very important. However, ensuring and knowing that they're providing support to the customer, they're able to help someone resolve a financial hardship, and then having a good feeling about the service they provided to that customer sometimes, and in most cases, does outweigh the financial gain. And that's according to what the participants in this particular study indicated. The third theme, balancing risk, revealed that managing risk in a good investment decision is another important component. Leaders that have more experience indicated that they are more likely to have use intuition at different stages of the decision process. So in some situations, the leaders may have to determine if the risk of losing revenue is more important or has more value than ensuring that their customer is happy. The element of valuing and managing risks reveal that more research is actually needed in this area as it relates to making good real estate investment decisions. For example, investment transactions, although they may take a longer time than expected, they could place the investor at a higher risk. So the risk of not making as much revenue may be the best option in order to move the transaction along and limit the risk. The fourth element, which was improving financial gain, or in a investor's mind, is the return on investment in the real estate investment decision process. That revealed that real estate investors ranked forecasting expected returns on investment and seeking out investment opportunities as very high when it comes to ensuring that there's financial gain in their transaction. Now, most investors measure the success or not success of an investment decision based upon the return on investment. A successful transaction may not always be based upon financial gain, and the participants shared a common view on valuing how to measure success and not always focusing on the profits. Now, the participants did indicate that in some cases, there is a sense of fear of failure, a fear of losing money, and in some cases, overanalyzing an investment decision that could also impact their ability to have improvements in financial gain. During the study, there were some limitations that occurred. The first is the trustworthiness of the participants' self-assessment may not be factual, as individuals were doing their own self-assessment. So that posed as a limitation for the study. Utilizing the critical incident technique was designed to assist in the interview process that required participants to recall a specific incident, and that provided the opportunity for a better understanding of the participants' decision-making process. However, having the participants recall a particular incident did limit their sharing of their normal day-to-day decision-making strategy, which limited their responses. Participants were not able to recall an incident using intuition that described their decision-making process in all situations. Participants did share aspects of their decision-making process. However, it was determined that there was no linear process based upon those particular findings. Researcher bias may have contributed as an additional limitation of the study. The researcher is a real estate investor and is very familiar with the business and the decision-making process. Due to that experience and knowledge, the interview questions may have created bias based upon the fact that the researcher is an investor as well. Please note that the researcher practiced thoroughness and caution during this process in order to minimize any influence and limitations of the study. Implications for practice. The findings in this study revealed that perceptions of how real estate investors used intuition in real estate investment decisions. So highlighting the perceptions and the realizations about the uses of intuition with real estate investment decisions would and should promote the importance of being aware of how intuitive decision-making could have an impact on the investor's return on investment. And again, the real estate investment decision process is not linear. Real estate investors will start off with rational decision-making, move to intuitive as a mixture because it is not a linear process, and it's based upon some of those factors that does not allow them to have a linear process. So they're looking at other things as opposed to the final return on investment, which is the dollar amount. Now, as it relates to future research, based upon the study's design, the implementation, and the findings, these following recommendations are provided as guidelines. So the first recommendation would be to substitute the interview approach, not utilizing the critical incident technique. Although it did provide specific incidents of investment decisions, the technique placed a limitation on the ability of the participants to expand other critical investment decision scenarios. So utilizing a face-to-face semi-structured interview process is highly recommended for future research. The second recommendation would be to repeat this study using a larger sample size. Now, to achieve this, it would be recommended to include a larger population of more diverse real estate investors using other demographics. And finally, the last recommendation is to repeat this study in another country to compare the differences of how real estate investors make critical investment decisions using intuition in a different country. There are limited international studies on real estate investing and the uses of intuition. So a study of this nature would be an addition to the existing literature that is currently in place. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Very
You're
well
welcome.
done. Thank you. Dr. Booker, would you like to begin?
I sure would. Very good job, Linda, which I knew you would.
Thank you.
Such interesting findings. And this last slide you mentioned that going to a different country, would there be different results? And I was thinking through the presentation, being that I had real estate transactions in Arizona and all the way up here, here in North Carolina, and they're very different rules, very different processes to follow. And I wondered if it would make a difference if you had done this study in a different state.
That's a great point. Yes, I did consider a different state. I actually considered the entire state, the entire United States.
Mm-hmm.
But my prior chair indicated that I needed to be a little bit more specific. So that's the reason that it was honed specifically for North Carolina.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to just, I bet you if you did, each state would have something a little bit different, and different intuitions would maybe fall into play, given some of the things that you mentioned, environments and just, knowledge that they brought to the table and all that. So just so interesting to, to hear about this study on intuition, because it's something I think some people don't acknowledge, number one, and you've done very, very well in articulating how we all use it and specifically for real estate. So this was just a really interesting study to me. How about any surprises you'd like to share with us that something you just did not see coming in your results?
One of the surprises that I really didn't see coming was the importance for real estate investors is that they're willing to walk away from money on the table in order to make sure that they are respectful, that they are doing the right thing for the customer. Oftentimes you will see individuals that it's all about the money, but in this particular study, the participants were willing to walk away or come up with alternatives so that the end result was that they were moral and ethical in their investing practices.
Interesting. And sometimes that's something that you don't always think about with
Very true.
Real estate agents, because I've sure had my share in all the transactions we've done through the last like 15 years, that good and bad, and they can make a huge difference in how that transition will just take place. Just one last question I have for you is, what's next for Linda? You've got all this great data and some really interesting information that needs to be shared. So what are your plans?
What's next for Linda is my goal is to write a book actually on the importance of utilizing your gut instinct to be moral, to be effective, to be compassionate in your real estate transactions, and not always chasing the dollar. So that is my next step.
Excellent point. Really good point. I think you did just a terrific job. It's just a really interesting study for me to read and to just be involved in, just like I said, with all the just personal experience I've had with, I guess you call it flipping houses. So
Yeah.
that's all I've got. That's all I've got. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Dr. Booker.
Sure.
Great. Tell us more about your book.
So my book, I wrote a book once before, but it was on something totally different, not related to real estate. But the reason I want to write a book is that as a real estate investor, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I have seen individuals lose money. I've seen people make money, but most importantly, I've seen people struggle. And so I would love to be able to share with individuals that, don't allow the naysayers to hold you back or make you think that you can't do something when your gut is telling you that, yes, I can do it. And so that's really what I would really want. What my purpose in having a book is to share with individuals how to hold on to your gut instinct for what you believe in. But most importantly, when it comes to real estate investment decisions, there are different factors to consider. And again, it's not always about the dollar. It's about how can you help someone, giving back to society, and not, again, as I said, not chasing the almighty dollar, but making sure that you're making good investment decisions. You're able to help someone along the way that may be struggling in a financial situation, and that's when other people come in and take advantage. So I want to show people not to do that. But in order to give hope to individuals that it is possible to be successful in this business, as long as that you're doing it the right way and that you're moral and ethical in all that you do. And so that's what my book really is going to be about. And to also share my experiences, because I think that's important for people to see where I have come from. And my hope is that they will see that as an opportunity that, it is possible for them to be able to be successful, making decisions, and doing it the right way. Probably a
Very
long
good.
answer. My apologies.
Thanks for sharing. No apologies. You froze just a little bit there. It's saying it's unstable, so I'm just going to wait a minute. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So how would your approach to writing your book differ now that you have become a scholar? And how would that differ if you had written this book prior to undertaking the dissertation, the review, the research process, and the ability, and having the ability to complete a high quality research study?
I think had I not gone through this process, I probably wouldn't have written a book. I probably would have been thinking, I should write a book. I would have been thinking, maybe I should teach a class, but I don't think I would have done it because I've gone through some of those same things that the participants shared, that intuition kicks in, and sometimes there are some naysayers, and then you're thinking, well, I'll do it later. And you kind of sometimes get caught up in the moment. And so prior to this, I probably would not have pursued the opportunity to write that book and finish it. I may have started it, but may not have finished it. But through this process, it has given me the desire, it has given me the skill set, it's given me the know-how to really push through that and be successful. And I know that I can write this in a short period of time.
Excellent. Well, you proved how quickly you could get through the after a lengthy start. I'm saying that with great.
I know. I completely understand.
Great confidence in you.
Yeah.
When you when you started this research process, and this was before this committee was involved with you, how were things different for you in your thinking about the process than where you are today in thinking about having completed and have become a scholar?
A great question. My process prior to you lovely ladies was so different. The process, unfortunately, did not provide the structure nor the guidance to allow me to make progress. There was a lot of back and forth, a lot of changes based upon the prior chair's agenda. I'll say that. Since I have had the opportunity to work with you and Dr. Booker, it has been a breath of fresh air. It has been the stability that I needed, the structure that I needed, the words of encouragement to allow me to pursue and know that I can finish this and be a scholar and be effective in my journey. And so there's no comparison to the prior to the current.
And for you personally, how are you different because of that? What you've just described, I guess, you know, the before and the after, but how are you different?
I am different because now I take each day with gratitude. If I say that I am going to do something, get something done by a specific deadline, I pursue and get that accomplished. I am no longer allowing things to sit and wait for it to happen, because if you wait for it to happen, it never happens. So putting things into action, sticking to those deadlines, being consistent in my delivery and consistent in what I say I'm going to do has proven to me that I can do it, but it's made me a better person in what I do in my day-to-day work, making sure that I set expectations with others and I fulfill the obligations that are expected of me. So that has made me a better person. Before, I may have dilly-dallied a little bit or may have been a little bit behind, but I take my deadlines much more seriously and holding myself accountable and making sure I allow others to hold me accountable.
Excellent. Well, I want to say this presentation for me is the richest way, I don't know, delivery, I guess I would say, of any time you've talked with me about your research.
Oh, that's so sweet. I don't know if I can say sweet, sorry.
So what I hope that, you know, there's a lot of substance here.
Yes.
And in this presentation, you brought it to, you included that substance in a very natural way. So I just want to say, when there's an importance, a great importance in basing your findings, your research, your presentation in the data, in previous literature, previous research studies and findings, and in your data. And that makes you more credible on many levels. There's a big difference between citing a theory and explaining how that a theory provides an underlying base for what you're, not only what you're studying, but what it means for the practice. I don't know
Yes.
if that made any sense, but
It does. Yeah, it does. And thank you for that, because there isn't a lot of research on that. And I think because real estate investing has just skyrocketed throughout the entire United States, it is very important that people really understand the importance of intuitive decision making and how to use it or not use it based upon the situation.
right. So you'll walk a fine line as a scholar and as a practitioner. And, you know, just as you convinced Dr. Booker and me that you did this, you know, you did this work, you grew both intellectually, I'm sure emotionally at some point.
Yes.
All that stuff. But, you know, the idea that don't be afraid to use data. I encourage you to use data to lend
Yes.
to that credibility.
Yes.
And when you have that, you know, for what my humble observation is that your confidence grows when you have relied on the process, the structure, and the true understanding of what the data means.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
And not making assumptions. Look at the data.
Right, and use it
And use it.
to support. It's not just what you say, it's the data show that what you're saying is in fact a contribution.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
Use your intuition.
Yes.
And the data.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Dr. Booker, do you need to take this offline?
I most certainly do not. I think Linda, I mean, it is probably one of the better studies I've seen. I have no qualms about passing her today and letting her do what she needs to do as Dr. Linda.
Oh, thank you.
I concur. Now you can sleep for a few hours.
I haven't slept all week.
So yes, you can stop recording now if you want to, Linda.
Okay, all right.
So let me just say, yes, I also